Well, at least where I'm located, it feels like it's nowhere near spring, but let's heat things up with a little spring football talk right here, the voice of college football, Hawkeyes. We, of course, have Corey Brada on the line. He makes it all work from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Please check out his work right there and subscribe again from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, how are we doing tonight?
Doing okay. How are you, Mark?
I am doing well. And yes, we are just about a month away from spring practice. So we've been teasing everyone for the past few weeks that we would start spring position previews.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. I know this has actually been a pretty interesting couple of weeks now it's turning into. So, of course, again, we're just delving into our spring preview. There are rumors circulating around Hawkeye Nation about potential movement on the staff. I don't know how much to get into this because they're rumors right now. There's nothing substantial, but it's always just it's interesting when rumors start to circulate of such nature. They are intriguing, and sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll see. So there's that, and then of course Chase Brackney, defensive end out of Colorado, committed to Iowa yesterday. Really good get for Iowa. I saw somebody, and I did post a video on my channel, and we'll cut up some footage and put it on this channel here in the coming days. But I found it interesting because somebody on social media I saw responding to Chase's commitment, and they basically said, well, not a real big name, but congrats nonetheless. And I'm thinking, so basically what you did is you clicked on his name, or you Google searched his name and went to rivals.com, or you went to 247sports.com and you saw 0 stars. And that's literally, I mean, and that's fine. If you want to rely on those recruiting sites, that's why they're there, I guess. But to call Chase Brackney a 0 star is sort of ridiculous. He's got an offer from USC, of course, Iowa, Colorado, Oregon State, a lot of good programs, Cal. I mean, he's going to be a 3-star or better recruit here. I mean, I would think so in no time. So I don't know how long these sites take to update that information. But I'm excited. He's a big kid, 6'4", 260. Don Patterson, I talked to him this morning because he looked at some of his highlight film. And, Don wanted to make sure it was clear. And I preface every recruiting video that I do in saying that, look, this is highlight film. I'm not watching game film, so it's impossible to be dogmatic about my assessments. But he said the same thing. Good burst. He's got a real good burst for his size. Of course, he's playing in a 3-down front at Cherry Creek, which is near Denver. It's actually same high school as Alex Padilla, which I found interesting. Iowa hasn't done a whole lot of work out in Colorado, but they've done well at Cherry Creek. Anyways, we'll see if he stays outside. I don't know if Iowa plans, it's so early. I mean, this guy's a junior. He's going to have another year. We'll see what he does with his body, and I'm sure they've already given him an idea of what they want to see from him. But they got to keep recruiting him. This is the era of decommitting and the transfer portal and all this stuff. So they got to keep recruiting this kid. But boy, all of these offers, I look back, and every single one of these offers, at least according to Brackney on Twitter, and I've not spoken with Chase, but according to his Twitter account, every single one of these offers has come in the past month. So, I'm not a national recruiting guru, Mark. I really try to follow Iowa recruiting somewhat closely, but at the same time, as you know, it's a profession in and of itself to be tracking all these athletes and who Iowa's, who's Kirk visiting and George Barnett and whatnot. But I have to think, Mark, and maybe you have some information on this, some insight. I'd have to think that's a pretty quick decision to have just gotten your first, Power Division I, even Power 5 offer less than a month ago, and to commit like that when the offers are, at least from the outside looking in, it looks like they were starting to roll in. Is that surprising to you?
Yeah. So here's somebody that is going into a 2023 season. So going into a senior season, and most highly sought after athletes are on the radar, especially if they're going to be given offers at the likes of USC and Iowa. So this is a late bloomer, apparently. who's coming off a tremendous season, apparently. And now the tape and the conversations and everything have circulated and given time after maybe a first week of December, closing of the season, and the offers start to roll in the next 3 to 4 weeks after that. Yeah. And so for him to, and there's always the difficulty of determining, and it's impossible to, the seriousness, the sincerity of the commitment. We don't know that. So guys will commit and flip all over the place, and other guys certainly they want that to be the commitment that they make up until signing day. So 7 months to hold on till football season. I've got that on the brain. It's 10 months to hang on until National Signing Day, of course, for one Chase Brackney, but it will be intriguing to see where he is ranked once the services catch up with him.
Yeah, and like I said, I would think it's certainly somebody who's on the recruiting trail would know better than I would, but I would think it's rare for someone to go from 0-star to getting offers from the likes of USC, Iowa, and Nebraska. That's another one that offered him recently. So, it is interesting and possibly another steal. I've had a lot of people here. There's frustrations. I know we've talked about frustrations with Iowa football and the offense and whatnot, but man, the recruiting, Iowa's done really good on the recruiting trail. I give a lot of credit to Kirk's son-in-law, Tyler Barnes. Regardless of how you feel about Iowa making the program a family affair, so to speak, I think Tyler Barnes has done a tremendous job. I mean, I'm not there behind closed doors, but just from the outside looking in, you could argue 2 straight top 25 recruiting classes, of course, according to whatever rankings you want to look at. And I think they have an opportunity to make this class even better. This next class could be, I'm not saying it will be, it could be the best of these last 3 years, which says something because they've done very well, very above average these last couple of years. And I don't want to go off on it. We're here to talk running backs and spring football, but Iowa's got 4 commitments right now, and you still got a lot of big names on the board that Iowa, you at least from the outside looking in, think that Iowa would have a decent shot at landing. Caden Proctor's the number 1 guy on that list, 5-star tackle from right here in central Iowa. Everybody wants him. I saw he released, I believe, his top 7. I have to go back and look at that. Of course, Iowa's in the mix, but so is every other big program. And then Kyler Casper, another one who's got offers from basically everybody. I mean, he can basically go where he wants. 4-star receiver from Arizona. Of course, his dad was a really good wide receiver here, Kevin, back in the late 90s. And then Mac Markway. Everybody talks about his dad. His dad didn't play a lot while he was here, I don't think. But he was a tight end here. Played some, I believe, offensive tackle. But again, he's got that connection from the St. Louis area, decommitted from Florida. And so is on the market now, just visited Iowa not that long ago. And those are just 3 of the guys, Mark, and you'd have to say that each one of them, because of connections, there's a decent chance Iowa could land any or all of them. I'm less optimistic about Markway than I am the other 2, but certainly he visited on Junior Day here the other day, and Iowa's got an inside track. So congratulations to Chase Brackney. And again, just look up his huddle tape, because I know it's a highlight tape, but he's a big, strong kid. And, I think he's going to, it's so early. I mean, I hate to say, I think he's going to factor in when he gets here, but, on tape, you can see why Iowa offered him, and they might've gotten a steal, because I would not be surprised to see a lot of other offers still rolling in here this spring and summer, Mark. And that's why we keep talking about the need to continue to recruit, because like you said, 10 months until signing day, and at least 7 months before you get him on campus for a game.
So we do have some stats on him going back to Max Preps. They have him listed, just a few numbers to if this is in case it's got to be him. Yes, Inglewood, Colorado. Yeah,
yep,
that's the guy. 27 total tackles last season. 17 solo tackles. One pancake block on offense. That's all we've got to go on, apparently. 7 games played. So I don't know if those
Yeah.
are partial stats or so we dig up what we can, but that's what's listed on Max Preps for one.
And I'm no
Case
Colorado
practice.
high school expert enough to know, what level of competition he's playing at a good level of competition. I can tell you that. This isn't Iowa 8-man football. So, he's doing it against good competition. Yeah, positive development. And now we can kind of switch gears, Mark, and discuss what should be an interesting battle at running back this spring. I know you and I kind of chatted about it prior to the show. It's very youthful. A lot of youth. Of course, you lose Tyler Goodson, you lose Ivory Kelly-Martin. We're 1 year removed from losing Mekhi Sargent. Shadrack Bird entered the portal a year ago. I mean, there have been some attrition certainly at that position. But I think fans are excited about this group. And if you want, Mark, I can go ahead and pop this banner up here so people can see the group. So, of course, Gavin Williams will be a third-year sophomore. LaShawn Williams the same. Devon Hilson will be a redshirt freshman. Jazzy Patterson from Deerfield Beach, Florida, of course, former 4-star, was notched down, had kind of a rough senior season. I think a lot of, I don't want to say turmoil, but my understanding, what I was told, was there's some issues down there and just kind of a tough year for Jazzy. But I have high hopes for him. I was big on him when he committed and stand by that. Caleb Johnson, just physically, just really impressive. Reminds me a lot of like a Braylon Allen as far as size. I mean, he's just a big kid. But Gavin and LaShawn both look good in the bowl game. It'll be interesting to see long term. I've mentioned this on the air before, Mark, but Devon Hilson, does he stay at running back? I think for now, I'd have to think he does. Of course, Iowa, we know they were interested in grabbing a transfer portal running back because they did recruit Nate Pete from Stanford. Missed on him. He ends up going to Mizzou. So I guess the question is, will they grab somebody else? I think that's certainly possible. We saw Iowa do that with Mekhi Sargent at the JUCO level a couple of years back. They did the same thing with James Butler from Nevada a few years ago, and was a really nice 1-2 punch with Akram Wadley back during that 17 season. So they're not afraid to go to the portal at that position. If they do that, I will be. I know this isn't going to be a huge storyline, but as far as nationally or even probably amongst Iowa fans, but I will be intrigued to see if Devon Hilson stays at running back. Because, he's a Des Moines North kid. He's, kind of he's been an underdog his whole life. My understanding of his story. I don't know how close he is. We'll have to see what happens with Patterson and Johnson. I mean, I have high hopes for both of them. So I guess in my own head, I'm assuming, boy, Devon's going to have a hard time seeing the field this next year. And at some point you want to use your best athletes. And I think Devon Hilson is a really, really good athlete. So that will be interesting as well. But again, Caleb and LaShawn, Gavin and LaShawn, I got Caleb Williams on my mind. Gavin and LaShawn looked really good against Kentucky, albeit against a banged up Kentucky front. So with that being said, Mark, any follow-up I know I threw a lot of information there at you.
Well, I know that I was impressed with those two against the Kentucky defense. Again, some opt-outs there, but still a top 10 to 15, 20 defense, even with the opt-outs in Kentucky. Gavin Williams, 98 yards on the ground, 19-yard was his long run on the day on 16 carries, so a pretty good audition for him. LaShawn Williams, 10 carries for 42 yards. And, of course, bringing in Caleb Johnson, 35th rated at the running back position, 15th rated in the state of Ohio, 6'1", 215.
Yeah, and according to Kirk, now maybe Kirk's exaggerating. He says he's like 6'2", 225. So if that's the case, I know not everything's bigger the better, but I mean, look at Braylon Allen. I mean, that guy's a truck. Look at Derrick Henry. I know, bit of an outlier there, but I think Derrick Henry the best back in the NFL right now, Mark?
I am not an NFL expert these days, that's for sure, but I certainly cannot think of a better back. I can certainly not think of a better back in regards to defenses not wanting to get in his way when he gets a full head of steam. There's no doubt about that. He's the guy.
I don't know of a better back. There is not a better back in the NFL as far as a second half back. Like the guy gets better as the game goes on, which is insane. But
Yeah.
that's what he does. So when you're that physically impressive. But with that being said, you don't see a lot of Christian McCaffrey would probably be in my top 3 in the NFL if he can stay healthy, and he's pretty small, to be completely honest. He's certainly not Derrick Henry. But I don't know. Again, Johnson. Coming out of Hamilton, Ohio. I know he was originally a 3-star, got bumped up late in the cycle to being a 4-star. And like I said, Patterson got bumped down. So more of the hype around Iowa seems to be around Caleb right now. I remember when I initially looked at Jazzy and Patterson, and this was, I didn't hear anybody else make this comparison. And I usually don't like to make big comparisons, especially as it relates to players coming out of high school. And at the time, I believe Jazzian would have been, he would have been a senior, but it was early in his senior year. I looked at him on tape and thought, he kind of runs a little bit like, and this was a long time ago, so I had to go back and look at tape, but kind of runs a bit like Sean Green did at that level. And Sean Green was like the exact same size. I mean, Jazzian Patterson's like, I don't know, 5'10". I can pull up his numbers unless you have a Mark. He's like 5'10", 190. But you watch him run, and he runs with a purpose. He's certainly not and I think Tyler Goodson was maybe around 180 coming out of high school. He doesn't run like Tyler, certainly doesn't run like an Akram Wadley. He's got good agility, makes sharp cuts, but again, hard to bring down. And I could see, you never know. Akram Wadley had problems putting on weight. But if a guy like Jazzian could get big, Sean Green, I don't know how big he ended up by the time he was with the Jets. I think he was probably, 220. So, if he can bulk up a bit, he can be that. I keep calling it a tweener back. I'm sure nobody likes hearing that word because it sounds kind of like a negative. No, it's a positive. That's what Wisconsin gets, Mark. I mean, a guy like Melvin Gordon, James White, Monty Ball, all these guys who can do it all. Braylon Allen's kind of the exception to the rule, but he's also just like Henry. Like Henry's the fastest back in the NFL. Like he's the biggest back, but he actually, I think he had the record this past season for like fastest run.
Did he really?
Yes. Isn't that ridiculous? Think about that.
I didn't realize that. I knew that he was super, super freakishly fast for his size, but I didn't think that he could compete with some of the top backs. At
one time he did. I'm trying to see if I can find. It looks like Jonathan Taylor maybe ended up with the fastest run at 22.13 miles per hour. But I remember, so this is from NFL.com. It was a 76-yard run on Monday Night Football. I remember watching that live and thinking, good Lord, 21.8 miles per hour. So if that's the case, then, not the fastest. I guess it looks like Jonathan Taylor, as far as a running back is concerned, Jonathan Taylor beat that. But I think he'd be second. And at the time, it was the fastest carry on the year. I mean, isn't that insane? That's absolutely crazy in my mind.
Yeah. It's insane. The combination is insane. I vividly recall in the second half of the playoff game between Ohio State and Alabama in 2014, in which Ohio State had come back from 21-6 down and led the rest of the way, that Alabama at one point gave Derrick Henry, who I believe finished the game with 12 carries. They gave him the ball 3 or 4 consecutive times, and he was just mowing guys over. And I was thinking, good Lord, do not get this guy involved and keep this up. And they got a little too, Lane Kiffin got a little too pass happy. And I thought, thank you for staying away from Derrick Henry and giving him the ball 12 times.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you do that. Like that's a fireable offense. And let's be honest, Tennessee, I mean, I know we're talking about Iowa. Tennessee has not been like I'd say they're average at best at quarterback. They added Julio Jones this past offseason. He dealt with injuries all year. They've been average at best as far as skill position talent is concerned. That dude's just a force. So I'm not expecting that out of Caleb Johnson. I'm not trying to, everybody wants to hear comparisons. I get that. And I make them at times. But Braylon Allen, I mean, the guy was 17 years old. Where did Braylon Allen rank in the Big Ten as far as rushing yards, rushing per carry? Let me look this up.
I thought he was way up the list. He ripped off once he got into the flow. He only had about 3 carries the first 3 to 4 games of the season. When Ches Malusi went down, they gave it to Allen, and he had one sub 100-yard game, and he put up some 170s and some 160s consistently through the rest of that Big Ten schedule.
And as I recall, did Malusi transfer out?
Did he? He was a transfer in from Clemson.
Okay. So he didn't leave. Okay, so he'll be. I'm assuming he'll be back next year. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, we will double check here.
So
I don't remember seeing that he's still with Wisconsin, Malusi.
Okay, so yeah, here are the numbers. We want to talk about average. Okay, so is it Mayan Williams?
Yes,
from Ohio State. So now he only carried the ball 71 times. So I think you can make the argument that Braylon Allen is the highest average running back as far as yards per carry in the league. So he and Trevion Henderson are tied at 6.8 per carry. Both guys just over 180 attempts on the season. Blake Corum with 6.6, and then a bit of a drop to Kenneth Walker at 6.2 a carry.
I really don't think that any of those other players outside of possibly Kenneth Walker had the game-to-game consistency and dependence on him. Michigan State could throw it. They had a Naylor and Reed on the outside, and they had a balanced offense. But in terms of dependency and consistency and reliability week to week, once he got rolling, once he was given the ball more than, let's see, it was 12 times in the first 3 games, 131 against Illinois, 108 against Army, 140 against Purdue, 104 against Iowa, 129 against Rutgers, Northwestern 173, Nebraska 228, had the one down game against Minnesota. That's the one that stuck in my head, 47 yards on 17 carries, and then 159 to finish out the season against Arizona State.
There you go. And so Minnesota probably did the best of anybody all year at forcing Wisconsin to throw the ball, right?
And we're the only one of those teams that beat them during that entire stretch.
And Mark, you remember me saying, and again, Iowa's defense is spectacular, but you remember me saying prior to that Wisconsin game, I wonder if Iowa was willing to sell out against the run. And the quick answer to that question was no. They really don't like to do that. And I think it's something to consider. Certainly, Phil Parker's just done a terrific job throughout his entire tenure, whether talking about position coach or now as a coordinator. But that might be one thing to look at. And certainly the Purdue issues is another thing to look at. He's not infallible. And I would say that the Wisconsin, you got to be able to beat Wisconsin if you want to be a consistent player in this division. Yeah, they lost to Wisconsin this year and found a way to win the division, Mark. So it was a schedule that was very favorable. And you just can't count on that year after year. They get Wisconsin at home this year, but I think that's a consideration because Minnesota did a good job of it. But I think that's proof that perhaps there's I don't know. It's far too early to say this because we're just pulling up a small sample size. But the guy like Henry, we'll see what happens with Braylon Allen. Could that be the new prototype running back in football, Mark? I think that's a fine question to ask, is it not? I mean, I thought of what's his face, Fournette being kind of that big. He's kind of got the same. I don't know how big Fournette is, but he's big, and he has not been as dominant in the league as I kind of expected him to be because he was terrific at LSU. So maybe it won't be, but certainly I like the fact that Caleb Johnson is different than anybody Iowa has gotten at that position that I can remember. And if I'm wrong, somebody bring it up. But again, we're used to Iowa recruiting the likes of Shadrick, Bird, Tyler Goodson, Akram Wadley, who are smaller guys, And now we've got Liddell Betts in here, who, Mark, was not a small guy,
No.
okay, and played bigger than he was, and played with behind an Iowa offensive line that was not very good. So you're seeing the Liddell Betts effect now here, Mark, because you're seeing him and what he wants in a running back. I think that's clear. I think he's got I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's targeting at that position and what he's been able to gain. And that's Caleb Johnson and Jazzy Patterson. And again, they are different backs, but I could see them both being that prototype that you want at Iowa, to be able to run behind a line that right now has not proven itself.
Liddell Betts had that Jerome Bettis type look, big barrel chested guy that just was punishing.
He still looks like that. I mean, it's just him and LeVar Woods are just ridiculous. They look like they could still play in the league. So, right now, again, I go back to recruiting. We're talking about Johnson and we're talking about Patterson. It seems like Iowa has a staff right now that, I don't want to say is perfected recruiting, because that, got Ohio State fans here listening. They're probably thinking we're crazy because we got in the top 25 finally and you're celebrating. But Iowa's had a lot of success, and we're talking 8 to 10 wins almost every year, with very underrated, if you will, recruiting classes over the years. They've had very few top 25 classes. And again, depending on what site you want to look at, I think maybe one or two. I'd have to look back. But they've had very few top 25 classes nationally. They've had arguably 2 in a row, possibly 3. And let's be honest, Mark, we're previewing spring ball. That position is not a position where Iowa has traditionally been real afraid to play freshmen. Now, these guys are true freshmen in Patterson and Johnson, but we've seen Iowa play freshmen in the past. Gavin Williams played a lot last year. They were freshmen. I know they were redshirt freshmen. Hadn't seen any game action. LaShawn and Gavin both played last year and played well. I think if Caleb Johnson comes in here ready to go, and of course he's not enrolling early, so we're previewing a spring without those two guys. Neither one of those guys are enrolling early, but they're not real deep at that position. It's a position where you can play freshmen. That's been proven over the past. So we'll see. I think it'll also be interesting to see what Iowa does in the portal. It looks like I don't want to say they're done right now. They're still waiting on a couple decisions, but I don't see any movement at the running back position as of right now. Maybe they'll go after somebody after spring.
Corey, your comment about Iowa winning 8 to 10 games per year had me running to my calculator app here. So I probably throw out the term 8-4 connected to Iowa more than I connect any type of record assignment to any program in the country. I don't know why that comes out of my mouth. I just think of Iowa and I think 8-4. They go 8-4 all the time. If you look at Kirk Ferentz's record at Iowa, it's 178 and 110. Do the calculation. He's winning slightly less than 62% of his games, and 8-4 is 667. So 7-5, 8-4. That's the average.
Are you're just looking at regular season, and then are you looking at your
his final record?
Okay, so
each
like
season.
For this, so including postseason, then
10-4 this year.
Yeah. So I mean, it certainly helps when or I shouldn't say helps. It hurts that record when you're 10-2 and you win a title, because then you have to play the big boy in the title game and
this past year. Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, and I did watch, by the way, I did watch for everybody here listening, I did watch the video you recorded yesterday with a young man who, you and him had a very candid conversation about Iowa, and that's, I believe, scheduled to be released tomorrow on this channel. All right. Am I correct in saying that?
Candid conference. Oh, we're talking about, yeah. So that should be released here. It's already been released with a lot of other conversation that many people here may not be concerned with, but I just wanted his impression on certain programs in the Big Ten. And I relayed what we discussed last week concerning some of Kirk Ferentz's just comments in this most recent meeting with the media, but also just what I've gathered through the years and what has been my perception of his placement of Iowa football and his criterion status for Iowa football.
My only problem with first of all, it was a great segment, by the way. I mean, people need to listen to that segment tomorrow. My only problem with what he had to say was he said Kirk Ferentz. And I'm like, how do we?
I got to admit, this is the only name in the country that I probably deviate as well.
It's Ferentz.
Ferentz.
Yeah.
But if I haven't said his name for a while or heard somebody correctly say his name for a while, I probably just did it in this live stream.
No. Maybe you did. I'll have to listen back.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just amazed. He's the dean of college football, and people still mispronounce his name. So, but no, I thought it was a great segment, and people are going to enjoy it. And you take a very honest approach. I got ripped yesterday on my channel because someone basically telling me that all I breed is negativity, and my channel, my show is completely delusional and displaced from reality. And so, the thing about it is, and then what they did, Mark, this hater that came on our channel, they sent a link and they said, look what this guy just posted, and it was a video that you posted. It was a video. Now, it was a cut from our segment, but he said, look at the title of this video. And I think whatever the title was, but it was perceived to be a negative title. And I said, why are you blaming me? Mark posted it. So, anyways,
you probably provided most of the commentary on the video.
So, but no, and for anybody who wants to claim that I'm a hater on this program, if anybody knows me, like ask any of my friends and family, I'm the biggest Iowa homer, Mark. I mean, seriously, anybody who knows me, I've been the biggest Iowa homer my whole life. So for people to say that I hate Iowa and that I'm just trying to be negative, come on. I mean, that's not who I am at all. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you, I get tired of talking about the same issues over and over again. Then people bring them up and we're forced to talk about them. And they are issues. They are big issues. And you brought up some of the numbers yesterday, Mark, on that show, which, again, that segment will be released tomorrow here on this channel. But in passing yards, and not just passing yards, basically every passing category that you can look at, Iowa's really not very good. I don't want to say bad because then I'll get ripped for it, but not good at all. And so, again, if anybody wants to say that I'm overly negative, go back to this channel back in August, late August, before the first week of the season. And I can put a link up in here if everybody wants it. But I went on the record and said Iowa will win the West. Mark, you remember that. I said Iowa will win the West. That's not being negative. So, but we can also point out that there are major flaws with this team right now. And I think it's fair to say that the coaches are responsible for fixing those things. And if you're satisfied with once in a while, once every 4 to 5 years, winning a Big Ten West championship and then getting, blitzed in the Big Ten championship game, that's your right. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong with that, but I think it's okay to be critical of that.
I don't know, as we need to catch up with some of these super chats. I can't think of a team that puts the formula together that Iowa does, because most people, I believe, that follow college football would just assume that Iowa's got a strong running game. And it's a decent running game. It's not as deplorable as the passing game that results in, you put those two together and the final metrics are not pretty. But you would think this is another version of Wisconsin. Strong defense, special teams, and then they have to run the ball. Therefore, at least they've got something to lean on offensively. But we were talking about the running backs, and I wish ESPN would actually put the number placement next to the team so I wouldn't have to count up from like 130 to wherever Iowa placed, but it looks about 90th in the country in rushing yards per game at 123.6. So when there's nothing to lean on offensively, that's and the rushing game wasn't deplorable, but 3.4 yards per carry. Now, of course, sacks are factored in there, and there's no running threat from the quarterback, so that has to be taken into consideration. But wow, the worst rushing attack in the nation averaged 2.8 yards per carry, and that was Purdue. Iowa
Colorado's pretty close to them, aren't they?
Colorado.
They're pretty terrible.
They're not in the bottom 30 or so. I don't see them unless
So-
I'm missing them.
So let me give you the exact numbers. You asked about rushing offense, and again, that Kentucky game helped. And I'm not saying that Kentucky game didn't count, but it did count. I mean, it counted, but you have to understand the circumstances there in a bowl game. 102. They rank 102 in yards per game. Mark, I'm looking at the stats on NCAA.com. So 123.6 yards per game. Ranks 102. So, Mark, you don't get the total cumulative offensive ratings if you're not well below average in every category, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say that Iowa's not. If say Iowa was at least decent in rushing offense and they run the ball enough, you're going to be probably decent overall. Because if you're first of all you run the ball, it's going to help your passing game a lot. But it's a chicken or the egg thing too. So, we'll see if Iowa can figure out a way to ride the momentum that they seem to. Two guys who were built totally different than Tyler Goodson, and I'm not insulting Tyler Goodson whatsoever. Okay, I think he's going to be missed. It's disappointing. I'd like to have him back, but Mark, it could be a blessing in disguise. These things could. I'm not saying it's addition by subtraction. I hate when people say that. Well, we're better without him. That's not the case at all. But it could be a blessing in disguise down the road, because I think it's very possible now with Liddell Betts and how he recruits. I think it's very possible that Iowa needs those big body type running backs, and that's what they're doing. So we're just kind of speeding up the process by Tyler Goodson leaving. We're speeding up the process to kind of segue over to the Liddell Betts era at that position. That's kind of how I perceive that room right now. Mark, I can't hear you.
I was trying to cut down some background noise there. So Kurt here in the live chat offering up another big body running back from the past in Nick Bell. Owen Gill came to mind as well. Falconer X, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. I wish Iowa was great instead of consistent. Falconer X is a Miami fan.
Is to say he's not an Iowa fan, so no. It's easy to say that. I mean, I don't know why. He may just. I don't know why he says that, but Iowa. It'd be nice to be consistent. You can't be. It'd be very hard to be consistently great, right? There's only 5 or 6 teams that you could say are consistently great, Mark.
Yeah.
But I think what Iowa fans want is they want consistency. But I think a lot of fans wonder, is it too much to ask for that every once in a while we can be great? You've got the dean of college football, the longest tenured football coach. Is it wrong to have higher levels of expectations now than we did 15, 10 years ago? Is that wrong? And I don't think it is wrong. I mean, is that fair to say, Mark, that look, we've done great. You've done great things. You won West titles, a couple of them. You've shared Big Ten championships. Is it wrong to want an outright Big Ten championship and a trip to the playoff before Kirk leaves? I don't think that's wrong. And I think Iowa's a ways off from that right now. And I know I'm generalizing that, but I think that's where fans are. A lot of fans.
Falconer X coming back here. We appreciate the contribution, sir. Mark, you laughed at my comment last night when I predicted Al Golden as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Any comment today? Well, I did not laugh because I didn't think it was possible or that it was untrue or not going to happen. I was a bit surprised. I had not been looking in that direction for a defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. So that was just simply my response. It had nothing to do with you, me believing the validity or not of the hire. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion about Al Golden. I don't even know what he's been doing for the past 5 years or so since he was canned at Miami as the head coach, for him to prepare himself as the coordinator for Notre Dame. But I trust Marcus Freeman and believe that he would make a good hire. So there you go.
What's the now that since Falconer X brings up Notre Dame, what is the latest on Tim Brewster? Do you know?
I don't know.
So yeah, because there were rumors going around a couple weeks ago that Tim Brewster may end up being hired as the tight ends coach at Notre Dame.
Yep.
And I'm just curious on if they have filled a position there. Because Mac Markway committed to Florida, I think in large part because of Tim Brewster. So if Brewster finds a job, I would not be surprised to see Markway follow him. And I can't imagine Tim Brewster, unless he just doesn't want one, I can't imagine Tim Brewster not finding a job. I think he's probably respected as one of the better tight end coaches in the country. So that's sort of an interesting storyline as well, recruiting-wise right now.
All right, folks. Appreciate you all being here. And we come your way each and every Tuesday night at 4:30 Central Time. We've done this 29 consecutive weeks covering Iowa football, even through what is typically a dead off season. But with the transfer portal in play, nothing of the sort. And there was a comment made earlier in the chat, and we've heard this comment made by a number of people thinking that the spring is going to lead to an exit for either Spencer Petras or Alex Padilla.
Yeah, I find, here's what I find interesting. We brought up Chase. So if you missed the first part of our show, Iowa just got a commitment yesterday from tight end Chase Brackney out of from the Denver area in Colorado. So same high school as Alex Padilla. Wouldn't one think, Mark, and I could be totally off on this, but wouldn't one think that Chase would have probably talked to Alex Padilla about his experience at Iowa? I don't think that's ludicrous to think that he would have done that, given the fact that they're both from the same high school. I'd have to trace back. Maybe they played 1 year together. Actually, I don't believe they probably did. Regardless, though, you would think that conversation would be had. So I know we're kind of jumping to conclusions, but the fact that he committed to Iowa so quickly, if Alex Padilla had given him any reason to think that he was not happy at Iowa, I have a hard time seeing Chase commit here. So that if you're talking about quarterback position, I think that's probably a good sign that right now Alex has faith in the program. And I'm not saying every guy who leaves says the program's crap. I'm not implying that, but if you're not playing, you're probably not going to have a lot of great things to say because you're upset you're not playing. And so, that's probably a good sign. I don't know where Spencer Petras, I think Alex Padilla, if he were to leave, he would have suitors. I don't know where that would be. Do I think it'd be a starting spot at a Power 5 school? Probably not. Spencer Petras is an interesting cat, though, because I just think he is I think he's very much loved by the Iowa coaching staff. And I have such a hard time seeing him transfer because I don't foresee a situation where Iowa just names Padilla the starter after spring. I think if anything, it's going to be a toss-up or perceived to be a toss-up heading into fall camp. And so my guess is if that were the case, the only guy I could possibly see leaving would be Padilla, because he just feels like, look, if he feels he's a step or two ahead of Petras and he thinks back to what happened last year and felt like he was right there with Spencer and didn't get a fair shot, then I could see him leaving. But it's just all speculation. It's not really fair to him. Again, I know his dad talked to the Des Moines Register and said, yeah, he's here committed for the spring. So that's good. The hope is, Mark, that one of these guys, and we talked about running backs today, the same thing applies for the backfield. The hope is that Iowa will find a way to develop these guys to where it'll be clear. Somebody will emerge because they'll shoot up as a result of development. So you hope that happens. But as of right now, they've got 3 guys on the roster. They'll get another one in the fall, and certainly that's going to be the position everybody is watching. But again, going back to running backs, that will be more than intriguing to watch this spring. He's got 3 scholarship backs this spring, which I don't know how that compares to the country, but I would have to think that's a very low number.
Absolutely. It's a low number. Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to get it back in the portal before then. So
Rob J, playing in the Big Ten West leaves no room for error without tough non-conference. Wisconsin finally stepped up that deal. I believe he's referring to trying to make a playoff bid, possibly, because playing in the Big Ten West, actually, there is room for error. You have more room for error playing in the West than you do in the East if you're looking to make it to Indianapolis. What do you think about the discussion from the athletic directors in the Big Ten, Corey, that the possibility of eliminating divisions?
I think it's already offering a lot of it's already bringing in criticism from the Big 12 and from Iowa State fans. People who said, "Oh, you told you so." This is, because Iowa fans gave Iowa State fans and and I'm sure across the landscape crap because they're having to play. The system in the Big 12 for a long time, in my opinion, has been kind of ridiculous because you could potentially have a scenario where a team plays the same team twice, 2 weeks in a row, right? I mean, that's feasible. It could happen, and it's sort of ridiculous. I guess
Why?
you'll have to fill me in on the potential line. What would be the potential setup if the divisions were eliminated?
There would be no divisions. They would line up the teams 1 through 14, just like they do in the Big 12, with 10 teams, and the top 2 teams would advance to the Big Ten championship game.
Right, but you're looking at 14 teams. So the problem is you're going to have the uneven schedules. Wouldn't the uneven schedules play even a bigger role in?
Well, they're also talking about scaling it back to 8 conference games. That's the other consideration being made. I think what they're doing is preparing for a 12-team playoff, in that they don't want an upset of a 1-loss or undefeated team in the Big Ten championship game by, let's say, a 3 or 4 loss Big Ten winner that wins the title game out of the division. They also, I had this lined up a little bit better when the news came out like 10 days ago, and it just popped into my head. I hadn't thought about it since, but there were a few things that came to mind that must lead to what the strategy is there. That was the first thing that came to mind.
Well, then I think if you're an Iowa fan, you're rooting hard against that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. You are, because if you go through year to year, there would have been 2 Eastern teams play this past season. Ohio State and Michigan would have played for the Big Ten championship 1 week after they played, as you just mentioned, in the regular season. 2020, let's throw it out because of the truncated season, although I think it would have been Ohio State and Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. Because you had a no-loss team and a 1-loss team. In 2019, you would have had Ohio State and I think Michigan and Wisconsin. Who knows who would have won that? They had the same records. We could go through it, and you would either have the split that you currently have of an East winner and a West winner, or you would have 2 currently East teams advancing to the Big Ten championship game. So yes, it would hurt the likes of Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those contenders in the West. I put together, and I can't find the notes, but I am looking to post a video on Big Ten scheduling because what I did was I looked at the 3 non-division opponents for everyone in the Big Ten and looked at their composite records from last season to see who's playing the toughest and the weakest non-division opponents. Purdue's 3 opponents, and again, I don't have the 3 opponents right in front of me, were 7-20 last year. So they're at the low end. They are playing the weakest of the Big Ten Eastern Division.
Can I guess the rest? Can I guess the other 3
Sure.
in the right order? I would say Iowa's probably toughest. Wisconsin second. Minnesota third.
Based on that record, Wisconsin and Iowa are tied for the toughest, playing 3 18-9 teams from the previous season. I don't recall Minnesota's.
They're tough. I think they're probably right behind. Theirs is tougher than Purdue's, if I recall.
So what I attempted to do, everyone's is tougher than Purdue's. Nobody comes close to facing 3 teams that only won 7 games the previous year.
Wow. So easiest in because I thought Nebraska's schedule. I looked at Nebraska's schedule. I thought their schedule was pretty favorable.
10 wins out of their 3 opponents in the Big Ten.
So that's why Mark, that's a beautiful point. I think Purdue has to be feeling pretty darn good right now, looking going forward about their chances of winning their first West Division title. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think this next year, Mark, is going to be a wide open race for this title. And I think you could see Iowa win it. I think you could see Minnesota win it. I think Wisconsin could win it. Purdue could win it. Let me throw a dark horse into the mix here, Mark. I think Nebraska has a chance because their schedule. Now, people will laugh at that. I've heard a lot of people just raking Nebraska over the coals, and they do that here in Iowa because I'm sure Nebraska fans do the same thing about Iowa. But their schedule is favorable. I know the hype train would tell you, well, we've got the transfer from A&M, we got the transfer from Texas, we've got Mark Whipple coming in. And I get that's just hype, but it could also work. I think Mark Whipple's a very, very underrated coach. And that was a really good get for them on defense. Casey Thompson, the guy was pretty productive, Mark, at Texas. I mean, is that fair to say he was productive?
Sure he was.
And Quinn Ewers comes there and he's gone. And that's just the era we live in. Quinn Ewers was not going to sit out another year. I think that's pretty clear. And you're going to have Brock Purdy's brother, Chubba Purdy, pushing him. I don't know if Smothers will stay, but the fact of the matter is, I think they've got a shot. I'm not saying they'll win the West, but I think they'll be there. I think and that's the first year I've said that. I think they will be in contention. The biggest game of the season for Nebraska is week 0. If they lose that game against Northwestern, I could very well end up being just like we had in 2021. If they win it, it's just going to be, I think, the hype train's going to be massive. I think that's just a huge, huge game week 0.
I will admit that my Nebraska prediction in 2021 was slightly influenced by the show that I just promoted there. We've got our Nebraska Live show coming up at 7 Eastern, 6 Central on the Nebraska channel in just a few minutes. You listen to a fan base long enough, at least I will admit, for as iron steeled as I would like to say that I am concerning my opinion and perspective, I just heard all these reasons why they were going to be so much better. And I picked them originally. I had 5-7 on my prediction list in delivering my predictions. And then I bumped them to 6-6. I only bumped them one game. But I originally had 5-7, and obviously at finishing 3-9, I would have felt so much better about 5-7. Missed the postseason. See, I was right, but I bumped them to 6-6. But as soon as they lost that week 0 game against Illinois, I'm looking at their schedule, thinking that's a huge loss.
I know.
They cannot lose this game, and they just did. And you're saying the same thing about even though the schedule lightens up. I agree for a lot of mathematical reasons, but also psychological reasons. They can't lose to Northwestern in week 0.
And the one team we haven't talked about in the West being a contender,
Illinois.
Well, Illinois, but Northwestern. No, I didn't mention Northwestern. And that's the weird thing about it. Like Northwestern does this seesaw thing we've talked about. They're good one year, they're crap the next year. So if they come out and this division could be really darn good next year. I don't think people realize that because Minnesota returns. Everybody returns their quarterback besides Nebraska, and I think Illinois, Peters is moving on. But we're talking Aiden O'Connell back. We're talking the Iowa quarterback room. If you don't like it, it is back. Tanner Morgan's back. And then Nebraska brings in some talent at that position, plus Smothers, who got some late season experience. So I think this division has an opportunity to be really, really good. And that's a scary proposition, but I'm excited for it. We're counting out. It's just funny because I think I'm sitting here talking about all the contenders, and yet the two guys I'm counting out are Pat Fitzgerald and Brett Bielema. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty crazy, isn't it, Mark? Like, it could be, you could have 7 teams in this division that are really, I don't know how good Illinois can be in year 2, but you could have 7 teams in this division who are it could be competitive each and every game.
I started touting this division, I would say about 3 to 4 years ago once I saw PJ Fleck enter the division and show that he was going to improve the situation there. Jeff Brom, the same thing initially at Purdue. Then he had a couple down years before he's bounced back here. And a few things were going on there that I really liked and thought, okay, this division is going to be, it has this reputation. I don't know if you've caught up with this, Corey, across the nation, as this is boring football. They run the ball. Nobody can score. They don't have any wide receiver play. They don't have quarterbacks. That's the reputation. It's been pulled together from some truth, but a lot of stereotypes that are not correct. But I think the division's fun. I love the division. I think it's balanced. And my only recent concern about Illinois football was looking at the recruiting that was just brought in for 2022. And I was a bit disappointed with Brett's performance on National Signing Day, as their recruiting was much lower than just about everybody in the conference.
That's bad. That's strange. It's very strange. I don't know why that is.
Their top player was ranked around 700th in the nation. Their top player, when the Big Ten Network listed everybody's highest ranked player.
And they were where? He was where?
700. Their top player.
I don't know how active they've been in the portal. I know they have. I know they've gotten. What am I saying? I don't know how active. I just did a video on how active they've been in the portal, because I went through the entire. That's a good opportunity for me to plug my channel here, Mark. I did do a video on Iowa's lack of involvement in the portal, and I wish I could pull up that graphic, Mark. Let me see if I can find this graphic, because this would be. I think you would find this intriguing, but this is actually a graphic that I put together. And let's see if I can find it here. But yeah, the point is Iowa has not been in the portal. I know Illinois was, but I think the bottom line is, yeah, I'm not seeing it here. The bottom line is Illinois has been in the portal. So if there, you can use we've seen it in basketball. I don't know how much you'd have a better grasp on that than I would, Mark. How is it real feasible to be able to turn a program around with portal players? I think that's a big question, because we've seen guys do that in college basketball, but it's different in college football, and I just don't know if you can do that.
Well, I think the two most stark examples in the Big Ten would be Michigan State. I don't know that they had a lot more to work with that was left over by D'Antonio than certainly Illinois with Lovie Smith and the transition to Bielema. But of course, Mel Tucker brought in something close to, with the recruiting class was about half of this. It was about 20 transfer portal players. I think there were about 40 to 42 new players on the roster. And then the other would be Greg Schiano, who took over a worse program than even Brett Bielema, had lost 21 consecutive games in the Big Ten. Just about every one was a complete annihilation, and brought them to some level of respectability almost immediately. They went 3-5 in the short season, and just finished 5-7 in the regular season.
Okay, I did find this, Mark. If you don't mind, let me throw this up here. So I was able to find this graphic. Now, keep in mind, before I put this up, I want everybody to know this was from 1 week ago. So these numbers have probably changed a bit. And I'm actually going to add this as, I think I can add this as an overlay, right? Hopefully. If it allows me to do this here. Kind of, we're working on the fly. See. All right, it's uploading. So yeah, what I did is I actually there you go. So let me take that comment down from Falcon RX. So you can see Nebraska here at the top, and of course Nebraska is leading the conference in both. Well, not leading the conference in entries, but they're leading the conference in commitments. and they are leading the conference in gain loss percentage, if you will. So, I don't know if that's a percentage that you really want to weigh things on, but Illinois has got 10 guys coming in from the portal. They've only lost 2. Or excuse me, they lost 10.
Absolutely.
Got 2. Sorry,
yes,
I'm looking at
the
backwards,
same
Mark.
list right now. I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, wow, they're losing players.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah. So I guess looking at that, Mark, and you see there Iowa with 5 entries into the portal and 0 commitments, it helps you to kind of be a little bit more balanced with criticism, I guess, of Iowa not going to the portal because they haven't lost guys. But yeah, I did not realize, I did not remember that Illinois was so low on this list. So they've lost 10 guys, gained just 2, and they did not do very well in this past class. So that is a concern if I'm Brett Bielema, because I thought, well, maybe they've done well in the portal. I guess they have not. I don't know who the 2 guys are. Maybe those 2 guys have been really good. They were top 5 for Norzad, who they missed out on, of course, went to Penn State. So it's not like they're not trying. I mean, they're certainly out there.
They picked up Tommy DeVito. He's the former Syracuse quarterback. He was a 4-star coming out of high school that had his moments at Syracuse. I did not realize until looking at this that they had picked up DeVito from Syracuse. So he'll be fighting for the quarterback job. Real quick, just to honor the super chat coming in from Falconer X, he had asked about NIL opportunities at Iowa. Is that a discussion? Do beat writers talk about that? Is there information out there on social media about tangible NIL deals?
That's gotten so quiet around here. I mean, it's not even funny. It's been so quiet. I think the biggest storyline with Iowa and NIL has been Tyler Linderbaum's raising of, I think, 30,000? I have to look back, and of course donating it to the Children's Hospital, which was fantastic. As far as it relates to attracting a big name quarterback or big name recruit or portal player, I just don't think the market's there. I don't know where it comes from, I guess is what I'm saying. And that is a concern. We've talked about that. Moving forward, how do the Iowas and, I think the Nebraskas are going to have it. I mean, even though, you think of Nebraska, Podunk Lincoln, the bottom line is people love their football, and there are going to be people who are willing to pay big bucks for players to come. So I find it just fascinating in sort of a morbid way that this wasn't addressed more. Like the fact that this is just going to become this is basically what it's becoming. It's becoming pay for play, which is what the NCAA act like they don't want. Now it's been happening. I get it. It's been happening for years. But the fact of the matter is, I think the NCAA looks stupid now because you have a situation where NIL has just become a recruiting tactic. Wasn't the whole premise of NIL originally supposed to be, okay, you're a student athlete at your school, you're earning your way, now you can benefit because of how well you're doing. Instead, it's becoming, hey, if you come here as a 4 to 5 star athlete, now you're going to get this money. And that's not what this was originally intended to be. Am I correct in saying that?
Amen to that. As soon as I had 20 minutes to think about this deal back the first day of July last year, I came up with 2 major issues. And I am not all over this situation by any stretch. So I'm not saying that I was some kind of sleuth on this, but that was my first response was, I do not want this becoming a recruiting tool. This is supposed to be, let's treat this and let's put in some guidelines. We can't stop it, just like cheating in recruiting. We can't stop it, but we can at least penalize somebody who gets caught, much like players are not able to have interaction with agents before they leave and give up their eligibility. They cannot also have contact with NIL suitors until they choose a school, sign, and enroll.
Right. Which, to put it in layman's terms, Quinn Ewers can't be talking to the local Ford dealership prior to signing.
Now, certainly there's going to be reputation that, if you go to Texas A&M, you can make a ton of money, and all that's going to be discussed, and that's fine if that factors into the decision. But there should not be deals made before the players come into the school, enroll, and sign to at least force them to stay at one school for a year, and hopefully at least above board, keep that out of the recruitment process. So that was my one initial response from a negative standpoint. The second one was, well, the obvious one that many people discussed right out of the gate was just jealousy in the locker room and it pulling at the fabric of teamwork. But we see that in the NFL. Players make different amounts of money, and better players make less than other players based on certain contractual situations, and it doesn't seem to be an issue, at least on the surface. But my other one was that if there are schools cheating now, paying players, once we get to this NIL situation, are they going to funnel money into the NIL fund and kind of hide it and complement or supplement the money being paid by some NIL suitors out there?
Yeah, and again, look, I mean, how are you going to regulate it? I get it, but the whole point is what you just brought up. You have to force people to cheat. Don't allow them a clause in the contract, so to speak. Don't allow them a loophole to where they can do it and be doing it legally or by the rule book. That's ridiculous, and that's what this has become. So the rich keep getting richer. That's just what's going to become in college football. And again, yes, it was happening. I get it. People say, "Well, it's always been there." Okay, if it's always been there, then why did we need to make a change? Well, there are people who want to play by the rules and be able to benefit. And yeah, there's gonna be individuals that benefit from this, that deserve to benefit from it. I mean, look at the situation with Tyler Linderbaum. That's just awesome that he was able to do that and raise money for the Children's Hospital. And yes, I get it. He'll be making millions of dollars next year. I understand that. But the point is, you're going to benefit individuals while hurting programs that have those individuals that you initially intended to benefit. So it's disappointing. I don't know where Iowa's at as far as like legitimate NIL, because people benefit from the NIL. We're not talking about some, like I know some of the Iowa basketball players have podcasts now with the Cedar Rapids Gazette, and that's great. They host a pod, and I don't know what they get paid for it, but like Patrick McCaffrey, Fran's son, did a commercial for Falbo's Pizza where he's 30-second thing where he's literally dancing in front of holding a pizza, and I heard he made good money. But what's good money? 5,000, 10. I don't know what it was, but we're talking. I mean, how much was Ewers? How much did Ewers make?
1.4 million.
I mean, it's not even. Why are we even having the discussion? It's not even
throwing a pass.
That's what I'm saying. It's not even. You can't even use the term NIL to describe both because they're two totally different animals. That's the unfortunate thing about it.
And I have yet to hear what Quinn Ewers is doing as work. What was, so first and foremost, that was the deal that he received at Ohio State, or I shouldn't say.
Has he got another one already
State.
at Texas?
I know that he had one at Ohio State, and that was rumored to be one of the reasons why he can't think of the term, but basically changed his eligibility and moved up in class to graduate early and be part of the 22 class. And then he had this deal waiting for him. How much Ohio State was involved, I have no idea. But you have to wonder, I wonder what did happen to that deal that he determined, okay, I'm not going to play at Ohio State, and now he goes to Texas. And I don't know what the exchange of benefits to work is. I'm not seeing that very often.
Is it possible? I'm sure there with that lump sum of change, I'm sure that there are lawyers out the wazoo involved with this, but is it possible that contract just stated that, hey, if you're here for a year, you can take it and run? Is that possible?
I guess it's possible that was maybe a minimum requirement.
Because why would you leave? I mean, I shouldn't say why would you leave so soon? I mean, like I get it, but to just say, well, I'm just giving up on winning the starting job, and because I get it, you take $1 million and you never make it to the league. That's probably not a good trade-off. So if he thinks he's gonna be able to go to Texas and then go to the league and make millions of dollars, I get that. But I would just think if you've got 1.4 or whatever waiting for you right there, I would think you would wait it out a bit longer. Because look what Joe Burrow did. I mean, he had one really good season at LSU, and I mean the guy The guy nearly won a Super Bowl on Sunday. So, yeah, I know it's a whole different conversation. I know you've talked about it in the past, Mark, but I'm with you. I think it's ridiculous that it's now being used in recruitment of kids. But you know, and I never thought that deeply about it. I'm sure you did. It sounds like you did because you are the voice of college football for a reason. But we're seeing the effects of that now. We're seeing how it's already spoiling what was initially intended for. Not intended. I shouldn't say intended. It was initially done. Let's be honest, because the NCAA had no choice. That was why it was done. The NCAA was forced to do it. So it's not like, oh, well, we want to help the young athletes. Give me a break. That's not why it happened. We know that. But the point is, there were young athletes and people that, like Tyler Linderbaum and those children in the hospital, that could benefit from it, and rightfully so. And now it's being spoiled to a degree, not completely, but it's being spoiled by the lack of closing that loophole, so to speak, which is, should have been done in advance. But let's be honest, do we expect anything better from the NCAA in planning?
No, we do not.
So shouldn't be surprised.
Money is the ultimate magnifier. So it can be used for good. It can be used for, and in this case, I don't want to say it's not being used for good or that these players don't have the right to earn money, but let's put some reasonable guidelines and stipulations on it to try to keep the game and the education as clean as possible. That's difficult to do at this stage, but as clean as possible, and at least make the entry into college as pure as possible.
Absolutely. And I do want to bring up something. I apologize. We talked about running back earlier in the show. We spent quite a bit of time breaking it down. And of course, that's what this show is based off of. Before we go, Mark, let me just put a plug in for the fullback at Iowa, because we know the fullback position is important at Iowa, whether you like it or not. It is a part of what Iowa does. And Monty Pottebaum is one of the best of the Kirk Ferentz era at that position. So, Mark, he'll have another year, at least another year. He's a junior, so he'll be a senior here coming up, and potentially could come back for an extra year. Turner Palisard, I assume, is still there behind him. And I think they have a walk-on who is probably going to have at least another guy moving over there at some point soon, because Palisard and Pottebaum could be done after this next coming season. But I guess I didn't mention it because there's just no reason right now to worry about it. Barring injury, Iowa has one of the best fullbacks out there, and I get that some teams don't use them very much. But Pottebaum can run. He can obviously block. You got to be able to do that out of the backfield. And he's proven to be an adequate ball catcher. So fullback will be just fine as well, and you just hope for no injuries. But again, if Pottebaum goes down, even Palisard's proven himself in game. So that's a positive as well.
So you brought up a great point, and we've got our Ohio State show on Wednesday. I'm going to ask our three Ohio State beat writers if they know anything that concerning this Quinn Ewers deal. I verified it about 15 different sources. That was the number I had in my head. Yes, $1.4 million as a player at Ohio State.
And I appreciate this comment from, this is the name I don't recognize, from Steve Compton. I'm happy. I'm an Arizona fan. We stole Lute Olson from you. They also stole Jaden DeLora from us, Mark. So congratulations, Steve. Appreciate that.
Our guy Dave is here. Great. So what we did tonight, Corey, was we put the show also on the main channel, see if we could stir up a little bit more interest, get some folks over. So 2 items. Number 1, subscribe at the Voice of College Football Iowa. More important than that, head on over to Hawkeye of the Storm and support Corey and his work right there. Iowa basketball and football all year round.
Mark, let me just bring one more thing up here. This coming Thursday, so Iowa plays Michigan Thursday night on ESPN. The reason I bring this up is, of course, we do a post-game show with Coach Gary Close after every Iowa game. But this coming Thursday, we have a very, very special treat. Coach Gary Close will be with us, but also former Iowa great Les Jepson will be joining us for this post-game show. So
I even know that name.
I saw the comment about Lute, which made me, of course, Les. I'd have to look back, and I'll certainly have to ask him on the show. But I believe I'm trying to think. He would have been. I think he would have been right at the end of the Lute era. I don't know if he was there for a year, because I know like B.J. Armstrong was there and was actually planning on leaving when Tom Davis came in, and they convinced him to stay. And of course, Les Jepson eventually went on to play in the NBA, big 7-footer. But I'm super excited for this show. So join us over from the Hawkeye of the Storm, here on YouTube for Iowa postgame Thursday night after the Michigan game.
There we go. Let's send it home from there. Join us each and every Tuesday night right here at the Iowa channel, Falconer X. Squeezing one last one in here. We certainly appreciate the contribution, sir. Quote, money is the ultimate amplifier, unquote. So if you like Mark Rogers, send him some money or super stickers. There
Amen.
you go. There's the connection. I like that one.
Hey, by the way, Mark, just so everybody knows, you are open to it, and I am open to it on my channel. If any Iowa athlete wants to come on the show for any reason to promote themselves, whatever, I think we're open. I know I'm open on my channel. I can't speak for you, Mark, but
yes,
always open for Iowa personalities and more content, especially during the off season. So.
All right, bring in your college football friends. Certainly Iowa's the priority, but as you can see, we've got all sorts of fan bases represented here each and every week. So let people know that we're here. We would love to triple this audience in the next few weeks. So grab 3 or 4 friends right here at the Voice of College Football, Iowa. And once again, from the Hawkeye of the Storm, get on over there and subscribe to Corey and his platform. All right, folks, we'll see you next week. Corey, thank you so much for all that you do, and we'll see you in 1 week.
Thanks, Mark.